Today I'm going to be sharing with you 10 unique Christmas DIYs that you can do without breaking the budget.
My favorite holiday. It means so much more than words can say. And I claim that Christmas is a magic day. Sometimes I tend to forget what glory this holiday represents. But it's fair to say that Christmas is a magic day.
For my first project, I will be using this Wood Mary sign from Dollar Tree. And two of these little wooden boxes. They look kind of like crates. And I found these in the Crafter's Square section at Dollar Tree. I will also be using one string of these silver wire LED lights and one spool of this red and black buffalo check ribbon with the white snowflakes. And I'll be using one of the winter or Christmas floral stems. So first I am going to paint my two little boxes using some ivory colored chalk paint. This is Waverly brand. I get it at Walmart, but you can use any acrylic or chalk paint that you have on hand. Then I'm going to use some red acrylic paint, and here I'm just testing two different shades that I have to see what looks best with the ribbon. And so I'm going to paint the whole Mary sign except for the reindeer in this red color, and getting on the sides of the letters takes a little bit of patience, but this is pretty easy to do, and I did have to put two coats of the red paint on. So here you can kind of see on the side of the reindeer that's next to the R, there's no line where his other ear and the edge of his antler is, so I kind of just drew it with a pencil so that it matched the other side, and then I'm painting around that line. And I did paint all around the edges of the word. I didn't paint the back yet because I wanted to make sure that I had enough red paint to paint the front of the word first. So that's why I didn't paint the back yet. Next I'm going to paint the reindeer in just a light tan color, and I'm just using an acrylic paint, a tan that I had on hand. You could use a darker brown if you'd like. Really, it's just whatever you want, but I wanted something that showed up well, and so this is what I chose. And I ended up painting the back of the sign using that same tan color because I didn't think I was going to have enough red paint. Now that my two boxes are dry, I'm going to use some wood glue and some hot glue and glue two ends together. So I'm just using the hot glue so that it will help hold it together while that wood glue dries. Next I'm going to take my string of lights and I'm going to thread them through the little handle openings in the box. And I do recommend putting batteries in these and making sure that they work before you put them in there and get them all glued down. I kind of figured out where the halfway point was on the string of lights, and then I just marked it with a Sharpie so I could have an idea, and then I thread it through the handles of the box, and I want to glue where that mark is, the halfway point. I'm just going to glue that in the center, and that way my lights will be evenly distributed. Then I'm going to run the lights along what will be the bottom of the box, which is actually the side of the box because this is going to sit on its side like you see here. And I'm going to run the wires along the bottom edge, and I'm going to secure them with a little bit of hot glue in a few places to hold them in place. I'm doing this because I don't want the wires to stick up and show through the word once we put the word on the front of the box. So here's basically what it's going to look like. And before I glue down the other side, I'm going to secure the battery pack to the back of the box. And that way I kind of know how long my wire is going to be. So I just glue a little bit on the edge there, and then I'm going to glue the battery pack to the back, but make sure that you glue it with the side that opens up so you can change the batteries in this. And I found hot glue's not enough really, and so you will want to use something like E6000 along with some hot glue to secure that. And then I'm going to go ahead and secure the wires on the bottom of the second box. And here is what it will look like once the lights are all in place. Next, I'm going to secure the word to the front of the box, and I'm going to put a little wood glue in some places, and then I will also use some hot glue to attach it. And the main thing here is to make sure the bottom of the word and the bottom of your box is flush so that it will sit flat. Next, I'm going to take that buffalo check ribbon, and on the bottom I'm going to attach it with some hot glue, and just make sure you press this down so that it's flat so it doesn't affect how your box sits. And then I'm going to wrap it all the way around to the other side and secure it there. I figure there's no reason to go all the way around the bottom because nobody's going to see that, and I don't want to waste the ribbon. Next, I'm going to cut apart my floral stem using some wire cutters, and I'm not going to use everything from this. I'm going to pick and choose. I think I'll use the greenery and maybe one pine cone and some berries just to embellish the top. Then I'm going to make a bow from that buffalo check ribbon and add that, and that's just the finishing touch that really makes that floral part look complete. And I decided there was one more little finishing touch that had to happen. So I took a berry leftover from some florals that I had. I painted it the same red color that I painted the word, and then I glued it on the reindeer, so now we have Rudolph. And here it is all done. I think it is so cute. It'll be really nice sitting on a shelf or a mantle or a table. And it looks good with the light off, and it looks good with the lights on as well. If you are new to my channel, I'd like to welcome you, and I'd love to have you stick around by hitting that subscribe button because I do lots of DIY projects here on this channel. Alright, for my next project, I'm going to be using 3 packages of these wooden rulers from Dollar Tree. You could also use the paint stir sticks if you can't get the rulers. And I'm going to be using some of this thicker jute twine. This is from Walmart. I'm also going to be using some red vinyl and my Cricut machine, but you could use stickers from Dollar Tree or decals, or you could even use acrylic paint markers or even a black Sharpie. To start with, I'm going to peel off the little plastic measurement parts on the ruler. They just peel right off, and they are kind of sticky, so I like to just stick them on the packaging so that when I throw them in the garbage, they don't like stick to everything. And once I have those all removed, I'm just going to go over the rulers with a little bit of sandpaper just to get rid of some of that sticky residue that is left behind. So originally I thought I needed 6 rulers. Really, you only need 5, and I am going to cut the first one at 9.5 inches, the second one at 8 inches, then 6.5, 5, 3.5, and then I'm going to cut another piece on that same ruler that is 3 inches, and I will put those measurements in the description box below. I'm using my miter box and saw to cut these, and you do want to make sure when you measure these that the end you are cutting off and not using is the one that has the hole in it, because all of these rulers have a hole in one end. If you don't have a miter box and saw, I would highly recommend getting one. They are great for these little craft projects where you don't want to use a power tool. And I do have a link to all my favorite crafting tools in the description box below if you want to check that out. So as I said, originally I did cut 6 pieces for the tree part plus 1 for the trunk of the tree. I ended up only using 5 for the main part of the tree. So now I am just sanding the edges to make sure there are no splinters or rough parts. And then I'm going to give all the pieces a coat of this chalk paint, just in an off-white color. This one is called Chiffon Cream. It is by Rust-Oleum and I picked it up at Walmart. Once those have dried, I'm going to take some antique wax by Waverly and I'm going to use this chip brush from Dollar Tree and just dry brush over each of the pieces and give them more of a distressed or aged look. If you are new to crafting or you're not familiar with dry brushing, it just means you get a very little bit of paint on a dry brush and you lightly rub it over your project and it leaves little streaks or lines on the project, and usually on the edges and where any raised parts are, and it just gives it that kind of antique or aged look. If you've watched my videos for any amount of time, you know that I love my dry brushing. It really is one of those techniques that just is so easy to do and it takes your projects kind of to the next level and really gives them that farmhouse look. So it was when I cut out my words on my Cricut machine that I realized I had one too many rulers, so I've taken one of those out. So as you can see here, I have 5 rulers for the main part of my tree, and then I have my little tree trunk. So I'm just going to get those positioned where I want them and apply them to the rulers. Once I have the lettering all on, I'm going to space these out kind of where I want them. Then I'm going to take my twine and I'm just kind of rough eyeball measure how long I need the twine. So I'm going to start at the bottom corner and go all the way up to the top, and then I will be adding some at the top for a hanger and then back down the other side. And I'm going to add about 10 more inches just to make sure that I have plenty of twine. And then I'll just cut that off. Then I'm going to fold my twine exactly in half, and then I'm going to tie a knot to form a hanger at the top. To make this next part a little bit easier, I am going to use some painter's tape and tape down that loop at the top to my table so that it will stay put. Then I'm going to lay the pieces of my tree across the top of the twine. As you can see, I'm just kind of roughly positioning them where I think they'll go, and then I am going to tape down the ends of my twine to the table as well. This is just going to make gluing the wood pieces to the twine so much easier. I used some craft sticks as spacers in between each of the pieces of my tree. This just helped me make the spaces more uniform and help them not to be uneven. Then I am carefully adding a little bit of hot glue to the top of each piece of twine and gluing each piece of wood on. Next, I'm going to take a small piece of twine and I'm going to glue one end to the trunk of my tree, and this is on the back side of that ruler, and then I'm going to just loop it around and glue the other end on the other side. And once the glue is set, it's okay to trim off those extra ends at the bottom, and then I'm just gluing that tree trunk right in the center below the word Christmas. Now I did want to add a little bit of embellishment to the top, but I had this little galvanized star. That's pretty underwhelming. And then I had this larger gold glittery star, but that seemed a little overwhelming. So then I thought, well, maybe I could use this metal star off of this ornament from Dollar Tree, but it was just too big and didn't look right. So I decided to scrap the star idea and just go with some greenery and maybe some sort of floral or pine cone, something or other. So I am using this little package of Christmas embellishments from Dollar Tree, and they actually have been carrying these like this summer. So check your craft sections for these, and they were with like the florals and stuff. So I'm just picking out a few things that I think go together well, and I'm going to add those to the top of the tree. And I actually really like how this looks on the top of the tree, better than any of those star options. We have a set of these lighted Christmas presents and that are for outdoor use that we put out in our yard. But this is a budget-friendly, easy Dollar Tree DIY for indoor use for some decor pieces that you can use either lighted or not lighted. But I just really like how they turned out, so I'm excited to share them with you. So let's go ahead and jump right in. For the large present, I will be using 2 packages of these 12-inch wood craft dowels from Dollar Tree. And I will also be making a smaller present using the 6-inch dowels, and for that you will only need 1 package of these. I will be using some of the Deco mesh from Dollar Tree, and I will need 2 rolls for the large present and 1 roll for the small. I'm also going to be using some decorative ribbon. The wire-edged wider ribbon works really good for this. And for each present, I will be using a string of these 20 mini lights. And to assemble it, I will just be using my hot glue gun and some Gorilla Glue sticks. For the first step, I am going to be gluing 4 of the 12-inch dowels into a square. And so I am just going to put a little bit of glue on the end of one of the dowels and glue it to the end of another one in a 90-degree angle. Then I'm going to repeat this with the other dowels to form a square. Once that is finished, I'm going to take another dowel and I am going to glue it in the corner standing straight up, again forming a right angle. This does require a little bit of patience because you have to hold on to it until the glue sets up. Then I'm going to repeat this in all 4 corners. Once that glue is set, I am going back in and just adding a little bit of extra hot glue on those seams just to make sure that those dowels that are standing straight up are nice and sturdy. Next, I'm adding dowels to the top. I'm going to be making a square on the top as well, and I'm making sure that I am gluing these the same way that I glued the bottom dowels because you want to make sure that the one dowel is in between the other dowels just like they are on the bottom so that your box is square. And once again, I'm going to reinforce those corners with a little extra hot glue just to make sure it's good and strong. On the larger present, I am going to insert several dowels in the center of these sections just to help reinforce it, just to make sure that it's good and strong and it's going to stay square. And you will be able to see these dowels, so you do kind of want to make sure they're kind of centered and straight just to help it look nice when it's finished. For mine, I added a dowel to each of the squares on the sides on the top, but I did not add one to the bottom. Totally could, but I just thought it might be easier for finishing my project if the bottom was open. So now I'm going to take some red craft paint, and this can just be any kind of paint that you have, and I am going to paint the dowels because I am using a red deco mesh and I want the dowels to blend in a little bit more. So whatever color of deco mesh that you're using, I would recommend painting the dowels that same color. So next I'm going to take my deco mesh and I'm hot gluing it along the bottom edge, and then I'm just going to wrap it around up one side, across the top, and down the other side. And the width of these rolls of deco mesh is perfect for half of the size of this present, and so it works out really good. And when you're doing this, you just want to make sure that you are pulling the deco mesh tight as you are gluing it so that it's nice and flat and you have a nice smooth finish. And again, this does take a little bit of patience because you have to hold it there until the glue sets up enough that it stays in place. Once I have that going up the one side, across the top, and down the other side, and then I have it glued down and secured, then I will just trim off the deco mesh, and then I will start on the other half of that side of the present. So I'm going to continue this on all four sides of the present. So when I have all four sides done, I'm actually going to have a double layer that's going across the top. One is going one direction and the other layer is going another direction, and that's totally fine. It looks great when it's done. I wanted it to be a double layer so that the box or the present wasn't quite as transparent. So once the sides are done with the one layer, then I'm going to take the deco mesh and I am going to wrap it around the present in a horizontal direction so that I have now two layers going around the present on all four sides. And again, I will have the deco mesh going one direction for the first layer and the opposite direction for the second layer. And now I'm going to do the second layer of deco mesh around what will be the bottom on the sides of the present. Now that my box is covered with the deco mesh, I'm going to make a ribbon using that wired ribbon. And really you need 2 rolls of the ribbon for the larger present. I only had 1, and so I'll show you what I did with that just using 1 roll. But I'm making a bow here, and because this is not double-sided ribbon, the pattern is only on one side, I'm having to twist it in the center each time so that I have the right side facing out. I'm making 3 loops on each side and then 1 loop in the center, and then I'm taking a piece of floral wire and tying that off. Then I'm going to set my bow aside for a minute, and I'm going to take the remaining ribbon and I'm going to go up one side of the present across the top and down the other side, right in the center where those supporting dowels are. Now, if I had had another roll of ribbon, I would do this on all 4 sides, but since I did not have enough of the same pattern of ribbon, for now I'm just going up one side across the top and down the other side. But I am planning to pick up another roll of this ribbon so that I can put this on all 4 sides. Next, I'm going to take my bow that I made and I'm going to poke those wire ends from the floral wire down through the center, through the ribbon, through the mesh, and I'm going to put 1 wire on each side of that dowel that's going across the middle, and then I'm just going to twist it in the center to attach that bow to the top of the present. Then I'm going to take my string of lights and I'm going to attach the end of the string to that floral wire that is attached to the bow, so in the center of the top, and this is just going to help hold the lights up so that they're kind of spaced more evenly inside the present. I'm also going to use a little bit of floral wire to attach it in a couple of different places to the dowels, just to hold the lights in place so that they're just not all falling or hanging in a straight line or in a heap. I like these lights because you can plug them in and they're not battery operated, and you can plug several sets together. So I also made a present out of the smaller 6-inch dowels, and it only takes 10 dowels for this, and there's 12 in a package of these shorter ones, so it only takes 1 package. So I've made my cube or square already, and I'm using white deco mesh for this one, so I am going to paint these dowels white. And you'll notice with this one, I didn't put the dowels in the centers of the squares. It's small enough that it's pretty sturdy, and I didn't feel like it needed that extra reinforcement. So now I'm basically going to do the same thing with this present as I did with the larger one. I'm going to add the deco mesh to it, and I am going to do a double layer on this one as well. So here's what it should look like after you have both layers of the deco mesh on it. As you can see, I have one going one way, one going another way, and it kind of makes a crisscross pattern on it. So now I'm going to use some of this mesh ribbon that I also got at Dollar Tree. I liked this one to go with this white package, and I thought it complemented the other red present that I made as well. So I am going to actually put this on all four sides since I have plenty of ribbon to do this on the smaller present. Then I created a bow to put on the top of this one as well. I'm attaching it with floral ribbon. You could use like a pipe cleaner for this as well, or even like a bread twisty tie would probably work. And then I'm attaching the lights in the top of this one, and since it's smaller I only attached it to the top. And here's what it looks like, and I think it's pretty even when it's not lit up, but it's really pretty when it's lit up as well. I picked up 4 of the little plastic Christmas Village houses from Dollar Tree, and I tried to get all different styles. Honestly, these are the only 4 that they had in stock at my Dollar Tree, and so these are the ones I picked. I also grabbed 4 of the unfinished wood chunky ornaments from the Crafter's Square aisle. If you don't have these available, you can use any block of wood. I also grabbed 4 bags of the clear glass beads or marbles. Either one will work. And I picked up some hooks from Walmart. This is a 6-pack of coat hooks, and I believe it was about $7 for this package. I'll be using some white spray paint, and I chose this one because it says it bonds to plastic, and I think this will work great on those houses. I'm also going to be using some black chalk paint, and I'm going to use some E6000 as well as my hot glue gun with some Gorilla Glue sticks. First, I am going to spray paint my houses with the white spray paint, and I am doing several light coats. It actually took me 3 to 4 coats of paint to cover all the color and to get in all of the little grooves and everything on the buildings. So this takes a little bit of time because you want to let your paint dry in between each coat. So while I'm waiting for my paint to dry in between each coat of paint, I'm going to prep the bases. And so I'm going to remove the hanger off of those ornaments, and I am going to cut one side of these to be flat since they're kind of scalloped. I need one edge to be straight so that I can attach the hook for my stocking. And I lucked out because these barely fit inside my miter box, and so I was able to push them down into the miter box and use this to cut them. If you have a different way to cut these, then by all means use what's easiest for you, but this did work for me, and so I'm just going to cut all of the bases to have this one straight side. Then I'm going to take a piece of sandpaper and I'm rounding off the corners where I just sawed off that edge just to make them a little more of a softer edge. And then I'm sanding any rough edges and just getting it all smooth and ready to paint. Next I'm going to fill the holes, and I am using hot glue, and a trick I use is to set the hole on a metal surface like a metal ruler, and then I'm filling the hole with the hot glue and I just hold that down tight until the glue sets. Then when I pull that off of the ruler, I have a nice smooth surface and the glue hasn't seeped out anywhere or made a rough surface. So that is a trick that I use, and you can use wood filler if you'd like to fill the hole with that, but I find this to be a pretty easy way to do it. Then I'm going to paint my bases, all the front, the back, the sides, all with my black chalk paint. And a tip here, when you're painting raw wood, if you would spray it with a matte finish sealer before you paint, it will actually be easier to paint. Usually you only have to use one coat. It just seals the wood and the paint doesn't soak into the wood as badly. So that's just a tip. I did that with these, only had to paint one coat on. And it went on really well because I had sprayed that matte sealer onto the wood first. So my houses are all painted and the paint is dry, and I think it was pretty much 4 coats of paint that I had to use. And one thing I did not notice until after I had painted them white is that this one is crooked. The base of it is not down all the way, and it's not something that I can fix. It's just the way it was made. So the house sits a little bit crooked. I probably will go get a replacement if I can find one, but something to watch out for. So now I'm using just an old paintbrush, and I'm going to dry brush some of the black chalk paint on some areas of the houses. I'm going to hit all of the corners and the edges and a few of the raised areas and just some various places on the roofs, just to give them a little bit more of an aged look. And this will also break up the white and bring out the details of each building. So now that everything is painted, I'm going to take those clear glass marbles and beads and I'm going to fill up the houses with these. And it's really easy because there's already a hole in the bottom where you would put like a tea light, LED tea light, but I'm just going to fill these up. And I chose the clear because I didn't want any type of color showing through the windows of the houses. So I'm going to fill these up, and this is going to give the stocking holders some weight so that when you hang a stocking on there, hopefully they will stay up on the mantle and not fall down. And I found that as I put these in, if I kept shaking it and shaking them down, I could get a lot more in. So the more you can get in, the more weight this will have. Then I just used a little wooden box to set mine in while I was working on it so that the marbles wouldn't all roll out. I'm going to take a piece of cardboard and cut it just big enough to glue over the hole to help hold those in, and so I'm going to use a little bit of E6000 and hot glue just to glue this in place. And I apologize, I think my tripod got bumped and I didn't realize that my picture wasn't in the center of the frame, so I'm really sorry about that. Then I'm going to glue the house to the center of the wooden base, and I've just marked where the center is on that base, and you want to make sure that the front of your house is facing that flat edge that we cut off, because that's where the hook is going to go. And some of the houses may overlap the edge of the base a little bit, and that's totally fine. It's not really going to make a difference. The last step is to add the hooks to the bases, and so I just using these hooks, like I said, I picked them up at Walmart for $7 for this package, and there's 6 hooks in here, and these are perfect for this project. And so I am going to drill some holes, pre-drill this before I screw the hooks on, just because I don't want to split the wood, so I would recommend doing that. And I had my Dremel tool close, so I decided I was going to try and drill the holes using that. It totally did not work well on this wood for that, and so I ended up having to get the drill, the regular drill, to pre-drill my holes. And in the meantime, my camera turned off, and so I didn't get that footage recorded, but I'm just pre-drilling holes and then screwing these hooks into the bases. Now, I did want to give you an alternative way to make these. If you can't find these things at your Dollar Tree, Walmart carries these flat stocking holders. They come in different colors: gold, galvanized, bronze, silver, and they're already weighted. And then they also have these little ceramic houses for $1.97 each, and they are the same size as the ones from Dollar Tree. So you could totally paint these houses or leave them the way that they are. They have the hole in the bottom, but you don't need to add extra weight because that hook, that stocking holder, is already weighted. So it could save you time, and the cost is about the same. And they had a fairly good selection of houses. These are some that I picked up, but they did have more than this. So here are my finished stocking holders, and guys, I love these. I am so pleased with how these turned out. It cost me about $20 for a set of 4, and I know there were only 3 here, but I didn't want to make that one with the crooked house, so I will be replacing that one. But $20 for a set of 4, way better than $100+. So I'm really happy with these. For this project, you will need a container for the base, and you can use a planter from the Dollar Tree or some type of bucket like this galvanized one with the twine around the top. You also need a package of the floral foam. I got the one with 2 round pieces in it just because those will fit really nice in the bucket I'll be using. And you'll want to pick up a Dollar Tree plunger because we're going to use the handle from that. Also some Spanish moss. And I picked up 2 bags of these stones that I'm going to be using in the base to help weight it down to make it more stable. You'll also want some type of embellishments. I'm going to be using some type of Christmas floral stems from Dollar Tree. You also need some craft paint to paint the post, and I'm using white, and then I'm going to use a little bit of black as well, and a paintbrush. And then of course a mailbox. This is the largest size mailbox. They did have them in, I believe, 3 different sizes. I picked up the largest size, and they had them in various patterns. I liked this little snowman pattern. You also need some of these pine garland ties. They come in a package of 12 at Dollar Tree. A hot glue gun and glue sticks. Then you'll need a box cutter or razor knife. And I had the idea last minute to use these fairy LED lights, but that's totally optional. The first step is to unscrew the handle from the plunger and just set the handle aside, and we'll get to it in a minute. But then we're going to take the plunger and the razor knife, and in that circle, just follow the circle around in the center of the plunger on the bottom side, and just cut around that circle. Just be really careful and just go around it a couple of times, and it cuts pretty easily, so just be careful as you do it and cut out that center part. Once you have the center part cut out, just throw away the other part, and we need to make sure that the bottom is flat. Mine had a little piece of rubber sticking up, and so I just wanted to get that cut off so that the bottom was flat. And so I just took the razor knife and just carefully trimmed around the little part that was sticking up, and made the bottom flat. And now we can just insert the handle back into the rubber part, and it just screws right back on, and just screw it on tightly. Most likely the handle will have a sticker on it, and so just go ahead and remove the sticker. Mine was a little challenging to get off, but I did get it off, and then I just took a piece of sandpaper to remove any leftover adhesive that was on the handle. And if you feel any rough spots on the handle, just go ahead and sand that as well. Next, we're going to paint the handle, and I'm going to first paint it with the white paint. And you'll want to paint that rubber end as well. Just don't paint the very bottom, the part that we wanted to make sure was flat, because that's what we're going to glue to the bottom of the mailbox. Once the white paint is dry, I'm going to take just a little bit of the black paint, just put a dot on my plate there, and then I'm going to dip my paintbrush in just a teeny bit of the black paint and mix it in with some of the white paint to make kind of a gray. And then I'm just going to brush a little bit here and there up and down the pole, just to give it a little bit more of a weathered look and just give it a little bit more dimension. Once you like the look of your post, just set it aside to dry completely, and then while it's drying, we will work on the base of our mailbox. The first thing is to put the floral foam into the container, and since I'm using the round pieces of floral foam, I don't need to cut them to size, but if you have the blocks, you'll just want to cut it so they fit down inside your container. And then I'm going to add some hot glue to the bottom of my container and glue the first foam to the bottom of the container. And then I will just add some more hot glue on top of that piece of foam and add this second piece of foam, just because I want a thicker piece of foam to push my pole down into. I didn't get my foam quite centered, so I decided to go ahead and measure where the center was on my foam. So I'm just measuring across the diameter and marking the center in the foam, and then I'm just going to turn my bucket and do it the opposite direction as well, so that I know right where the center is, because I want my pole to be centered in the bucket. Then I just marked the center with a pen, and then I'm taking the end of a tool that's round and just pushing it down, kind of just making like a guide hole, because I don't want the foam to break when I push the handle into it. So I just did that to kind of help it go in easier. So let me just add here that I put the stones in, and then I decided that I wanted my pole to be a little sturdier. So I took the stones back out and added some glue into the hole and on the pole. And then also, after I put the pole back in the hole, then I added a bunch of hot glue all around the pole just to make it sturdier. And this made a really big difference, so I would highly suggest doing this. Another option someone mentioned is to just fill your container with plaster of Paris or Quickcrete to hold your pole in place, which would work really well. Now that the pole is in place, you can add the stones all around your foam and the pole to help stabilize it. And I liked these stones from Dollar Tree because they were flat, most of them. There were some really thin ones, and so they slid down in between the foam and the side of the bucket really easily, and I was able to really stabilize that using those rocks. Next, I'm going to find the center of the bottom of the mailbox. So I'm just going to measure both directions and find the center and mark that so that I know right where I want to glue the mailbox onto the pole. Then I'm just going to add some hot glue right to that center, a fairly generous amount, and we're just going to glue that right onto that flat rubber piece that we have on the end of the pole. Now it's time to add the embellishments, and I'm going to first start out with adding some Spanish moss to the bottom. And I had first used both bags of the stones, but I decided with the Spanish moss that it was too many stones and the Spanish moss didn't really sit down inside the bucket like I wanted it to. So I ended up taking out the second bag of stones. So really I only used one bag of stones, and then I added Spanish moss on top of those. I'm going to take a couple of the garland ties and just twist the ends together to make it a little bit longer. And for this one I only needed two because this pole is a little bit shorter than the Christmas lamp post. And I'm just winding it around the pole and securing it at the top and the bottom. Then I wanted to add some color down at the bottom, and I had this clip with the glittery poinsettia, and I decided because there was poinsettias on the little mailbox to kind of go with that theme, and so I'm using this on the bottom. It has a little glitter poinsettia and a little present and a little gold accent along with the pine, and I just thought that was really pretty, and so I'm going to use that on the bottom. I decided I also wanted to add some florals to the mailbox itself, and so I'm going to take two more of the pine ties and fold them in half. Then I'm going to take them and I'm going to turn one upside down so that I have the folded end of one pointing up and the folded end of the other pointing down. And then I'm just going to twist them together in the middle and then spread them apart on the ends that are separate. And so I have kind of three ends on each side. Then I like to just kind of lay things out and see how it looks before I start gluing it all together. So I'm just going to play with it. You can just use whatever florals or embellishments that you like. And I decided to continue with the poinsettia theme here, and I'm using a gold glittery poinsettia on the mailbox part with some red glittery accents. So I'm going for a little bit more of a glitzy look on this mailbox than I did on the Christmas lamppost that I made. I decided that I wanted my floral embellishment on the side where the flag was, but I didn't want to glue it so that the flag would not go down, because when I store this I want to be able to put that flag down so it doesn't get all bent up, because it's just made out of like thick paper. So I'm just going to glue my embellishment on just below where the flag is attached, being careful not to get any glue on that so that it will still fold down. The last thing I decided to add was my little fairy lights, and I just tucked the little battery pack kind of underneath the Spanish moss and then just wound the little fairy lights into the greenery at the bottom, up the pole, and in the greenery on the mailbox. And I just think it adds a really festive look to this mailbox. I am going to be showing you how to DIY this snowman advent calendar or Christmas countdown. And I will let you know that this project is a little bit more involved. It's not an easy 10-minute project. It's not hard, but it will take a little more effort and a little more time, but it's totally worth it. We have used ours ever since our girls were little. They are adults now and they still love it. And so it's something that you can have in the family or give as a gift, and it will be loved and cherished and used for years. So let's not wait any longer. Let's jump in and get started. My original snowman was made from a piece of a 4x8 beam, and since I didn't have that available and it would be really expensive to buy right now, I picked up a 1x8 piece of lumber from Home Depot. We cut 3 pieces that were 9 inches long from this board. If you don't have a way to cut these yourself, you can ask Home Depot to cut the pieces and they will do that for you. We also took the 3rd piece of wood and cut it down to 2-inch strips. I will show you those in a minute, and I will put the measurements for the pieces that you need in the description box below. Here are the pieces, and this is the front and the back. Since a 1x8 is not actually 8 inches wide, it's like 7 1/4. They are 7 1/4 by 9 inches. And then these are the 2 side pieces. These are 2 inches wide by 9 inches tall. For the brim piece of the snowman's hat, I picked up this piece of wood from Dollar Tree. It is 5 1/2 inches wide by 11 inches tall, and it is about 3/8 of an inch thick. I just found this in the Crafter's Square aisle. If you can't find it at Dollar Tree, you can pick up something similar at Home Depot or Lowe's. I will also be using these wood planks from Crafter's Square. They come 6 in a package. I will be using 3 of them for my snowman. These are the 7.1 by 2.8 inch size. I picked up these wooden stars at Hobby Lobby. They are 1 inch and there are 10 per package for $2.99, and I did get them for 40% off. And I picked up these little linoleum nails. They are 11/16 in size, but I liked the finish of these and I got those at Home Depot. I will be using this chiffon cream chalk paint to paint my snowman. I will also be using this ink or black colored chalk paint for his hat, as well as some craft paint just in a kind of mauve color or pink, and then orange and black, and then also some metallic gold. I'm going to start by sanding down all of my wood pieces and making sure that they are nice and smooth and have no sharp edges or splinters. Next, I'm going to paint only one side of one of the bigger pieces using the chiffon cream chalk paint. And I'll show you here in a little bit why we're only doing one side of one of these for now. Once the paint on the front of my snowman is dry, I am going to figure out where the nails need to go. I want to make sure they are spaced evenly, so I will be measuring and marking them out. So I have figured out that the top row of nails needs to be 5¼ inches up from the bottom. So I'm going to mark that on both sides. Then from that 5¼ mark, I am going to measure in 1 1/8 increments down and mark the other 4 rows where my nails will go. And I'll mark those on both sides. Then using those marks as a guide across the snowman, I'm going to place my ruler across so that it lines up with both of those marks on the edges. And then I am going to put a mark at 7/8 inch from the left side, one at 2¼ inches from the left side, another at 3 5/8 inches, and then 5 inches, and then 6 3/8 inches. Those are all measurements from the left side. So I know that sounds like a lot of strange numbers, but that's how it works out so that it looks nice and neat and even. And then I'm going to repeat marking those same measurements on the 4 rows below that. And to make this easier for you, I am going to make a diagram with all of the measurements on it, and I will put the link to that in the description box so that you will have that quick reference guide. Next, I'm going to paint on my snowman's face. This is going to be easier to do before I actually put the nails in the front here. So I am sketching a little simple snowman face. This face will be on that reference sheet that I have in the description box below. And so if you need to use that, but I'm just kind of freehanding a cute little face, and then I am going to paint it. I'm going to start with my pink color, and I'm going to use a little round stippling brush. And if you don't have a brush like this, you can use a little piece of paper towel. You can use a different kind of brush. You can use a sponge and just maybe practice on a piece of paper or something until you get the look that you want. But I am just going to use this. And the trick to making these little cheeks on this snowman is to use very little paint and make sure that your brush or whatever you're using is dry. And you can always add more paint. So start light and work up. Next, I'm going to use my black acrylic paint, and I'm going to use a smaller brush, and I'm going to paint on his eyes. Now, if you're not comfortable painting these eyes, then you could certainly use a Sharpie marker just to draw and fill them in. And you could also use the Sharpie marker on the little dots that are going to make his little coal mouth. And actually, if you have an orange Sharpie, you could use that to do the nose. So this can be very easy. I just like the looks of paint. I like to paint, and so I just decided to paint my snowman's face. Now I'm going to take the end of a paintbrush. You could also use a stylus, and I am going to just dip it in the paint and make dots for his mouth. And this is going to be like the pieces of coal. I usually start with a little bit of paint and then add more if I want those dots to be bigger. Now I'm going to use the orange acrylic paint, and I'm going to paint his little carrot nose. If you are a regular subscriber, thank you so much for coming back. And if you are new to my channel, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I want to let you know that I do a lot of budget DIYs and Dollar Tree DIYs. Not all of my projects are as detailed or involved as this one. I do have a good variety of easy, quicker projects as well as some more detailed ones. So be sure you're subscribed and set your notifications so that you don't miss out on any of them. So now I'm just using a really tiny little brush and adding some little white dots in the corners of his eyes. These just really help him come to life and give him a little personality. I did also decide to use my little brush and add a few little lines with the black paint on the carrot nose, as well as a little bit of black at the bottom of the carrot to give it some shadows. And then I took some white paint and added that to the top side of the nose to make it look like there was just a little bit of snow on his nose. I really love adding these little details. I think it just makes it so cute and takes it to the next level. So now it's time to add the nails. And the nice thing is there are enough nails in this package that you can make several of these snowman countdowns if you want. And there's enough wood in that piece of lumber to make a second one as well. So I'm just going to hammer in these nails about halfway in, and I'm making sure that the thickness is right so that the stars will hang from the nails. So they'll slip over the head and still have enough room to hang. And so then I'm just going to tap in all of my nails. And the reason I'm doing this before we assemble the snowman is because I didn't want to glue all of his body together and then be pounding on it because I thought that that might be counterproductive and cause it to kind of break apart the glue of gluing his body together. So that's why we're doing all of this first. And in a minute, we're going to start assembling our little snowman. So now that I have the front of my snowman all done, all the nails are in, now it's time to glue his body together. I'm going to take the other larger piece of wood that is unfinished, and I am going to take my two side pieces and I'm just going to run some wood glue up on the edge of each side of the back of the snowman, and then I'm going to place those sides on top. I'm going to use some clamps to hold these together. If you don't have any clamps, you can just set something heavy on top. Just make sure that your wood pieces stay aligned. And then I'm going to let this dry for a couple of hours. I will put the link to these clamps in my description box under my favorite crafting tools because they are definitely some of my favorite crafting tools. They're super easy to use because you can put them on using just one hand, and I love that about them. So it's been a couple of hours and the glue is pretty much set up. It will continue to dry, but it's good enough so that I can keep working on my project now. So now I'm going to add some more wood glue to those side pieces, and then I'm going to place the front of my snowman right down on top of that. Make sure everything is lined up, and then I'm going to put my clamps on this and let it dry thoroughly. And you do want to be careful when you put your clamps on not to crank it down too hard. You don't want to make indentations or marks on your project, but this is just to kind of secure it together so that the glue can set up. While that's drying, I am going to take the wood piece that I got from Dollar Tree, the one that's like 5.5 by 11, and I am going to cut off 2 inches off of the length so that it is now 5.5 by 9. Then I'm going to take my 3 wood planks, 2 I'm going to leave just as they are, and then the third one I am going to cut 2 pieces that are 3.25 inches long from this one piece. These are going to be the side pieces for my snowman's hat. Then I'm going to give all of these pieces a quick sanding to make sure that they are nice and smooth. And I'll use a damp paper towel just to get off any of that sawdust. To put together the snowman's hat, I am going to start by putting the two side pieces on top of the one long piece. So I'm going to use some wood glue, and for this, because this wood is really light, I am going to also add a little bit of hot glue so that it holds it in place right away and I can keep working with this. And now I'll add a little bit of wood glue to the top of those sides and a little bit of hot glue as well. And then I'll just put that other wood plank right on top of that. So I'm basically just forming a box that's going to be the top of the snowman's hat. On the 5.5 by 9-inch piece of wood that we're going to use for the brim of the hat, I'm going to measure 1 inch in from every side and then just draw a line all the way around. And this is going to give me a guide for the placement of the top of the hat. And then I will just put some wood glue all around the bottom of that box and glue that down to that brim piece. Then I'm going to put some heavy books on this and let it dry completely. And I am making sure that I get any excess glue wiped off so that I don't have any drips that are dried on my finished project. Once the body of my snowman is completely dry, then I am going to take some wood filler, and anywhere there are any little gaps or anything where I glued the pieces of wood together, I'm going to put a little bit of wood filler in there, and then I will let that dry and sand it down so I have a nice smooth surface to paint. So now it's time to paint the rest of the snowman. So I'm going to use that same chalk paint that I used for the front of the snowman and just paint the sides and the back. I'm not going to worry about the inside because that is not going to show. And so just a nice coat on the sides and the back to finish off the body. For the hat, I am using Waverly chalk paint in the color ink. It's just a black chalk paint. You could use a black acrylic paint as well. And I painted the inside of his hat, and then I'm going to paint all of the outside except for the bottom. On the bottom, I just painted a strip around the edges, the part that was going to show so that when I glue the hat on, I'm gluing raw wood to raw wood using the wood glue. I thought that would give it a stronger hold. So that's why I'm painting it this way, because that center part of the hat on the bottom is not going to show anyway. When that black paint is dry, I am taking a chip brush or just kind of a really bristly brush and dry brushing some of the white paint on the hat just to give it some dimension and make it look a little bit old and worn. And I just think this added a lot to the hat instead of just having it a plain black. Then I'm going to use my wood glue and a little bit of hot glue and glue the hat to the top of the snowman. And I was pretty generous with the wood glue. I just made sure that I cleaned up any drips or any that was kind of squeezing out. But I wanted this to make sure that it was stuck on and wasn't going to come off. And I did set some heavy books on this and set it aside to dry. Okay, now it's time to make our stars for the countdown. So I have 25 wooden stars that are 1 inch, and I need to drill some holes in them so they can hang on the nails. And this is a little tricky because you have to do it very carefully so that you don't break the stars. So I first put down my little cutting mat and a little piece of scrap wood, and then I used a smaller drill bit than I actually needed. I used a 1/8 inch drill bit to drill my first hole in the star, and then I used the actual size that I needed, which was a 9/64 inch bit, to make my hole a little bit bigger. And this worked really well because when I tried to use the bigger bit first, it would crack the star or break it. So by using the smaller bit and then the larger bit, I was able to get my holes drilled without breaking the stars. And I'm drilling my holes up toward the top point of the star because I need to have room to put my numbers on the stars. And then I just checked to make sure that they were going to fit okay. So now I need to paint them, and I am going to be using this metallic gold acrylic paint. You can pick this up at Walmart or any craft store. You could paint these using a paintbrush, but we need to paint the front and the back and the sides, and so let me show you a little hack that makes painting small things like this so much easier. I am just going to take a zippered sandwich bag and put half of my stars in there, and then I am going to drip about 3 to 4 drops of paint in there. Um, you can use a little more or less, but I think less is a little bit better because if you get too much, then it gets really globby. So I just zip that up and then I just squish them all around to make sure the stars get all covered and then dump them out on my paper towel. Then I will use a paintbrush to just smooth out any places where there might be excess or any missed places. And I did use a heat tool to kind of dry this top side so that I could flip them over and they wouldn't stick to the paper towel, and that worked really well. Then I'm going to take the rest of my stars and just repeat this process. Once the paint on the stars was dry, I did pick them up and look at the sides of the stars because there were a few places on the stars that the paint didn't get on. So I just made sure everything was covered, just touched them up a little bit, and this only took a few minutes. Now that all the paint is completely dry, I am going to write my numbers on the stars using a black Sharpie marker. And I could have painted the numbers on, but even I didn't want to go to that length. So the black Sharpie marker works great for this. And while I didn't do this on mine, I think I'm going to go back and do it, but I would put the number on both sides of the star so that when you're looking for the star in the bag to put it on and you're looking for a specific number, you can find it more easily. And now that everything is completely dry, I am going to spray my stars and my snowman with this matte clear sealer because I want to protect the face of the snowman and I want to make sure that those numbers stay on the stars. So it's just going to protect my whole project. Well, our snowman is looking pretty cute, but he definitely needs some embellishment. So I am going to use this buffalo check wired ribbon as a scarf. You could use any type of Christmas fabric or ribbon that you want to use for a scarf for him. I just tied a knot on the side and trimmed it off, and then I did add a little bit of glue here and there just to hold it in place. I just used my hot glue gun just to secure it. Now I'm going to take a floral pick and I am going to embellish his hat. So I'm going to just cut this one apart and use some pieces from it. I'm not going to use the whole thing. I'm going to arrange them on his hat and then just hot glue them down. And for the very last step, I am going to take my white acrylic paint and I am going to add a little bit here and there just around the brim of his hat and on the very top of his hat just to look like he has a little bit of snow. So when I went to put my stars on my little nails, I noticed that they didn't want to go on very well, and that was because some of the paint had gotten in the hole when I painted the stars. So I just took my drill bit and ran it through the hole really quickly, and then they fit back on the nails just fine. So here he is all finished, this cute snowman Christmas countdown. And I love how the stars just store in the top of his hat. I just put a little organza bag in there and we keep the stars in there. And he's just so much fun. What a cute way to count down to Christmas.
I don't know about you, but I have always stored my ornaments in the original packages, and this just takes up so much room. And honestly, when it's time to decorate the tree, it takes forever to take the ornaments out of the boxes, and it takes even longer to put them back in the boxes when it's time to take down the tree. And I just decided this year I was done with that. I had seen a video from one of my favorite YouTubers, Cass from Clutterbug, and I will link her channel below because if you don't follow her, you really should. She has amazing organizing tips. She's so practical. She's really fun, easy to relate to. I just really enjoy her channel, so I will link that below. And she was talking about how she doesn't store her ornaments in the original boxes and she uses an organizing tote that's for ornaments. So I decided I was going to get me one of those and that's what I was going to do. But when I tried to find an ornament organizing tote for what I wanted, I couldn't find it. I wanted one that was hard plastic, so it was sturdy. I wanted one that had trays that you could lift in and out. And all I could find were fabric totes that had trays or plastic totes that didn't have trays, they just had cardboard dividers, and you would have to empty all of the ornaments off of one layer before you could even get to the next layer. So I didn't like that. So I just decided to come up with my own, DIY my own ornament storage tote, and so today I'm going to show you how I did that.
So currently my ornaments are in 3 large totes and I am going to combine them into just this one single tote using these 24 compartment drawer organizers that I picked up at Walmart. These come in a 2-pack for just $4.87. So the package said that each of these are 12 by 12 inches, so I did verify that, and I'm going to cut a piece of foam core board 12 inches by 24 inches, and I actually did make it just a tad bit longer, about 24 1/4 inches, just to give me a little extra wiggle room. And I will be cutting 2 pieces of foam core board this size, the 12 by 24 1/4, so that I can make 2 trays using these 24 compartment drawer organizers. So before I start gluing these down to the foam board, I'm just making sure that they are going to fit like I had planned. And this is perfect. And so I'm using some Gorilla Glue sticks in my hot glue gun. And I'm going to be pretty generous with the glue and just glue this down all the way around, making sure that I hold the drawer organizer straight because the sides want to bend in because they're foldable. So I just hold them straight until the glue sets up. Then I'm going to add the second drawer organizer in the exact same way, and I will add also a little hot glue in between the two along the sides on the top edge, just to make sure that they are stuck together well and that everything is secure.
So now I have a tray that I can store 48 ornaments in, and I decided to add some little jute twine handles to my trays. I did just hot glue these on because the trays aren't that heavy. You could actually punch through the cardboard in the organizers and tie your twine to the sides if you're worried about the twine handles coming off by just gluing them, but I felt like they were pretty secure. So I'm going to take out my ornaments out of the boxes and start putting them in the dividers. And I did have some that had some little notes that came with them that I did want to keep. So I just put those in the little compartment with the ornament. And just with this very few amount of ornaments, look how much packaging I was able to get rid of. I think this is amazing. And I've just gotten started. Okay, I know what you're thinking. You're wondering, what about those larger size ornaments? Well, I do have a solution for those as well. The material that these drawer organizers is made out of is very easy to cut with a pair of scissors, and so you can cut out sections from the inside of the organizer and make larger compartments. This was so easy and it worked great. And this does not have to be done before you glue them to your foam board. So if you glue them down and later on you decide you want to make more larger compartments, you can certainly do that. So I made two trays using these drawer organizers, and now I'm going to make a third tray using this set of drawer organizers. This I also got at Walmart. It was $6.87, I believe. There are 6 trays, and these are a little bit shorter and they're individual, but this actually worked perfect for my tote because I was not able to do 3 trays of the other drawer organizers because it was too tall. So doing 2 trays of those and this tray of the shorter organizers is perfect and it fits in my tote exactly. These trays had little cardboard flaps that you were supposed to push down into the bottom, but they didn't really want to stay very well, so I just added a little bit of hot glue and secured them down so that they would stay put. The dimensions of these, once I laid them out on the foam core board, was still 12 inches, but I did have to add a couple of inches to the length to be able to fit all of them on, but that still fit inside my tote, and so my foam board was 12 by 26 inches for this one. And then I just used my hot glue and glued these to the foam board just like I did the others. By using these larger drawer organizers, this gives plenty of room for some of those odd sized ornaments or miscellaneous things that you might have. And so I think this is a great addition to my organizing tote. And I will be adding the jute twine handles to this tray as well. So here are 2 of my totes completely empty. The third tote has boxes from ornaments that are actually my daughter's, and I didn't want to get rid of her things. So those will wait and let her decide on. But I took all of these ornaments out of the packaging and put them in my organizing trays. And look at all of these boxes and packages that I can get rid of. I did find some things that I could donate, so I can get rid of those because I don't use them anymore. And I did have a few larger items that need to be stored in a different place. But look at all of my ornaments in these trays. I got so many ornaments in here, and I still have room for more. I'm so excited about this. I should have done this years ago. Now I can see all of my ornaments. I can lift the trays out and it's just so much easier to access them. It will be faster to decorate the tree and faster to put the ornaments away after Christmas. And so I am super thrilled with this. So the total cost for everything, including the tote, was $26. I did get my tote last year after Christmas at Costco. These are the best totes. It was $5.99 on sale. I can guarantee they are going to cost more this year because unfortunately everything costs more this year. But this is still a very budget-friendly option for storing all of your Christmas ornaments. I do want to mention that when you are making this, depending on the tote that you are using, it is best if your trays go all the way up to the top so that your lid goes on and covers that top tray right across the top. And this is going to keep things from moving around. So even if the tote is tipped, things are going to stay in place. If your trays don't go quite all the way to the top and there is a little bit of room in there, this would be a perfect place to store your tree skirt or even maybe a Christmas throw that you're going to store and just put out at the same time you'll be putting out your Christmas items. So just something to keep in mind because you want your ornaments to be all secure and not rattle around if the tote should get tipped. And you can see that I did have some room on the side of my trays, and I think that that is actually beneficial because I did have some larger things that I could store in there as well. And it just keeps everything nice and tight in the box, and I can store so much in this.
For this project, I picked up 3 of these sayings in these frames from Dollar Tree, and I picked these because they're a little bit taller and narrower so that when I put them together they actually look like window panes. I picked up these letters from Walmart. They were 98 cents a piece and they had the glittered letters and then they also had these wood grain looking letters, and I'm not sure which ones I will be using. I think probably the glitter letters is what I'm going to be using for this project. The floral picks and greenery at my Dollar Tree are really picked over, so I picked up this large bunch at Walmart, and it was just $5, which I thought was a pretty good deal because it's huge. It has all kinds of different things on it, the berries and the little cinnamon looking stars and the cotton, and so there'll be more than enough to do this project with this. I'll also be using some wired ribbon that I picked up at Dollar Tree. You can get this anywhere, but I just happened to get this one at Dollar Tree. This is a package of snowflakes that I got at Walmart last year, but you can get them at the Dollar Tree as well, and I'll just be using one out of that package. Other supplies that I'll be using are some E6000, some craft sticks, some chalk paint that I had on hand, a paintbrush, scissors, and my hot glue gun. Oh, and also a pair of pliers. The first thing I'm going to be doing is using my pliers and I'm going to pull those little metal tabs out of the back of each picture frame that's holding the contents into the frame. Then I'm just going to remove all the contents from the frame. I'll be saving the glass and discarding the rest. Then I'm going to take my chalk paint and I'm just going to paint each of the frames, and when I do this I'm not putting a solid coat on the frame because I want it to look a little bit more farmhouse. So the chalk paint is really good for this project because it just goes on, it adheres to the frame really nicely, but then using a paintbrush I get a little bit of streaking so that the color of the frame shows through, and that's the look that I'm going for. So I have to be honest here. On my first frame, I actually glued the glass into the frame, and then I realized that I hadn't painted it yet. So I highly recommend painting the frame first and then gluing the glass in. That way you don't have to worry about keeping the paint off of the glass. And I just used my Gorilla Glue hot glue to glue the glass into the frame. Next, I'm going to glue the 3 frames together, and I'm going to use some E6000 for this and my hot glue gun, just because I want to get a really strong bond, but I also want it to hold together immediately so I can continue working on this project. So I'm using these little tubes of E6000 that I got at Walmart. I really kind of like them because when I buy the large tubes of E6000, sometimes they get a little dry before I actually get it all used. And this way I get it used up before it dries in the tube. So I'm going to put some E6000 on the edges, the long edge of one of the frames, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of hot glue to it as well, and then stick those together, just making sure that the edges are lining up and they're pushed together securely. Next, I'm going to use the craft sticks and the hot glue, and I'm just going to put a generous amount of glue on there and glue the craft sticks onto the seams where the picture frames meet. This will give it a little more stability. And I'm putting 2 on each of the vertical seams, and then I'm going to put 1 across the top and the bottom where the frames meet as well. Next, I'm going to create my florals for the top of the window, and I'm just using that big bunch that I got for $5 at Walmart, and I'm just going to cut off some pieces of that I think I want to use and just start laying them out on the frame. I know a lot of people get a little intimidated by floral things. I would just encourage you to not stress about it too much, and just remember that things in nature are not perfect. They're not symmetrical. They're not identical. So if one side doesn't look exactly like the other side, it's totally okay. And you'll see in mine that they are not, totally the same on both sides. And so I just start layering them and moving things around until I get a look that I like. I did want to use the little stars that were in this floral bunch. They look kind of like a cinnamon star. I just really liked those for this project. And then I had some of the red I wanted to incorporate, and that will help tie in with the ribbon that I'm using, which is also red. So now that I have it the way I want it to be, I'm just going to take one of these garland ties that they sell in a package at Dollar Tree, and these are just some I had on hand, and they're just like a pipe cleaner basically, but they're made out of the pine garland, and I'm just going to twist it around the center to help hold everything together. Then I'm just going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to glue the bundle of florals to the top of the window in the center. I did also take my glue gun and put a few drops of glue on the underside of the florals just to help secure them a little bit better because they seem just a little bit loose, and that helped to hold them more securely. The next step is to make a bow, and I'm using this ribbon from Dollar Tree, which is just a pattern on the single side, so it makes it a little bit trickier for making your bow. So let me show you how to do this. You're just going to make a loop, and then you're going to, in the center, what will be the center of your bow, you're going to twist the ribbon, and so that you then have the wrong side of the ribbon facing up. And then you'll just make another loop about the same size as the first one that you made. And then you're going to twist your ribbon again, and that will again make the wrong side of the ribbon face up toward you. And then this ribbon, it was a little bit slippery, but the wired ribbon is easier to work with. It holds its shape a little bit better. So then you just continue to make loops on each side, twisting it in the middle each time so that you have the right side of the ribbon showing. And on this bow, I made 3 loops on each side, and then I made a little bit of a smaller loop in the center. So I have a total of 7 loops. You can make as many loops as you want. I just felt like 7 on this bow was about the right size for this project. Then I'm going to cut my ribbon off the spool, and I usually try to work with it on the spool because I never know exactly how much I'm going to need, and this way I don't accidentally cut it too short. Then I'm going to cut a little piece, and this one I actually cut it a little too short, but cut a little piece of the same ribbon to put through the center and tie in the back of the bow, and you want to tie it as tightly as you can, and I tie it in a knot. So you want to make it at least long enough to make it easier than I had it to tie a knot. Once you have the knot tied, then I just add a little hot glue to the back just to secure it a little bit more, especially since the ends of my knot were pretty short. Then just turn your bow over and start fluffing up your loops and twisting them around till you get the bow how you like it, until it's nice and full. And that's really all there is to it. If you have ribbon that's the design is on both sides, it's a lot easier because you don't have to worry about twisting it every time you make a loop. So it's the same technique, you just don't have to twist it every time, which does make it easier to make. But that's all there is to making a bow, and now we're ready to put it on our project. I'm also just using hot glue to attach the bow, so I'm just going to put some on the back of the bow and press it down into the center of my florals, and just hold it there until it's secure. And then I'm just going to kind of weave the ends of the bow into the greenery just until I like the way it lays and looks. Then I'm going to fold the ends of my ribbon in half and then just cut at an angle so that the ends of the ribbon are nice and finished looking. Next, I'm just going to take some fishing line and I'm going to tie some to each of the letters and to the snowflake. I'm using the snowflake for my O in the word joy, and I'm just going to use the fishing line to hang them because I didn't really want to glue them directly onto the glass. Okay, so I have another confession to make. This step I really should have done before I put the florals on the frame because it was really hard to glue these to the frame with the florals in the way, especially the snowflake, because it was right in the center where I had already glued the bow and the florals down. I glued the snowflake first because I wanted to get it kind of in the center between the bottom of the florals and the bottom of the frame, and just I'm using it as kind of a guide for my letters as well. So that's why I put it on first. Then I'm just going to go ahead and glue the J and the Y on, and just kind of use that snowflake as a guide for how long to make the string for hanging those letters. So again, here was my inspiration, what I saw in the store that gave me the idea to make this. And here is my finished project, and I have to say that I really love it. I think I like it better than the inspiration piece that I saw in the store, and that one was $40 and mine only cost me $12 plus using a few supplies that I already had on hand. So I am really glad that I decided to make this project. For this, you'll need a window lid tin from Dollar Tree, and you can also get these at Walmart, and I think I've seen them at Michael's. I also am going to use a sleigh ornament again. I just really like these little sleigh ornaments from Dollar Tree. And also some of the little trees that they had in a 2-pack, and they come in white or green. You'll need some type of filler for the bottom. I'm going to be using this shimmering filler that I got last year at Hobby Lobby. Or you could use the faux snow, but that might be a little messy for this project. So maybe something like fiber fill would work well for this too. I'm also using one of these LED white lights from Dollar Tree. And a package of these glitter snowflake stickers. For tools, you'll need a hot glue gun and glue sticks, some painter's tape, a razor or safety knife, some acrylic paint, and a paintbrush. First, you'll want to remove the lid from your tin, and we're going to need to cut a hole in the back side of the tin using the razor knife. You could probably also use a drill for this and just drill through the back side. We just need a hole for the lights to go through. So you just want to very carefully poke through the tin, and I'm just going to cut out a little square in the back of the tin. Then I'm going to take some painter's tape. You could use probably duct tape or masking tape, just something that you can cut little strips of and put through the hole and tape over the sharp edges so that that you don't get cuts, or so that it doesn't cut the wires for your lights as well. Next, I'm going to take some acrylic paint, and this is in a midnight blue color, and I'm just going to paint the bottom of the inside of the tin. And I chose this color because I wanted it to look kind of like a dark night. And I did have to do 2 coats of paint on this to get it to cover the bottom of the tin all the way, and you'll see that second coat here in just a minute. While that first coat of paint is drying, I'm going to get my little sleigh ready, and I wanted to just do a red and white, so I'm going to remove the little decoration that's on the sleigh for now, and I'm going to use these little red packages that I took off of some Christmas picks that I got from Dollar Tree. And since I want to do white and red and silver, I'm exchanging the gold bow that was on there with a silver string that I had just to make it all kind of coordinate better. Once the first coat of paint is dry, I'm going to go in over the top of that with a second coat, and I'm using a little bit of a lighter color. I decided that that first color was just a little bit too dark, so I'm using a little bit lighter of a blue. I think it's called Uniform Blue by Ceramicoat, but it's just something I had on hand. You can just pick up any kind of acrylic paint or craft paint at Walmart. And I'm leaving a little bit of streaking on this second coat so that the darker uh, paint shows through a little bit, just to give it a little more dimension. So then I'm going to let that paint dry all of the way, and then I decided I wanted to give it a little bit of sparkle, so I had this glitter spray that I had gotten a long time ago that I decided to spray a little bit on there. That step is totally optional, and you don't need to do that if you don't want to, or if you don't have that on hand. Now we're going to put the lights on, and we're going to glue the little battery pack to the bottom of the back side of the tin. And you want to make sure that you have the side that opens facing out so that you'll be able to change the batteries when you need to. So I'm just going to add some hot glue to the other side of it and stick it directly to the tin. And then you'll just need to thread the lights, the string of lights, through that hole that we cut into the inside of the tin so that we can attach those. Once you have the light string pulled all the way through the hole in the tin, then we're just going to bring it up to the top edge of the tin and start gluing it around the edge. And I just put a little dab of glue and stick the wire in it, and I'm gluing where the lights are. That seemed to be the easiest place to glue that string of lights, and it doesn't seem to affect the way the lights look or work. Once you've gone around the inside of the tin once, you're going to want to take your wire and just make a little fold in it so that your second round of lights will be offset from the first one, so that you don't have two lights in the same place, and this will make the lighting more even in your tin. So now it's time to assemble the scene inside of our little tin, and I've chosen a white tree, and then of course my little sled that I got ready, and then I've decided I'm going to use the filler that I got at Hobby Lobby last year, and so I'm just going to pull out and decide how much of that I want to use, and before I actually put that in the tin, I'll want to glue my tree inside the tin. Then I can place my filler inside the tin and kind of wrap it around the base of the tree. Then I'm going to glue my packages inside of the little sleigh since I didn't do that before. And then I'll put the sleigh inside the tin and just secure it with a little glue as well so it doesn't slide around inside there. Then I'm going to take several of my little snowflake glittered stickers from Dollar Tree and just stick them on the back of the tin. And there is a little bit of a trick that I like to use just to make it look a little more interesting, and that is to cut one of the snowflakes in half, and then I'll just use that half and place it right up against the top of the tin, and that way it just looks a little more um, complete, I think. So I decided I wanted to cover up those two little holes that were showing in the sleigh where I removed the original embellishment, and I wanted to stick with the white and red theme, so I just made a little white bow out of a scrap of ribbon, and then just added a few little berries that I had as well just to finish that off. I decided after the fact that I wanted to put a ribbon or a bow on the top of this Christmas diorama, so I'm just making a bow out of some white ribbon that I had, and I'm just looping it back and forth. This ribbon is not wired, and so I'm making more layers in the bow just to make it a little fuller, since it won't hold its shape by itself as well as wired ribbon would. Once I have as many layers as I want, then I'm just going to take another piece of the ribbon and put it through the bow around it and just tie it in a knot to secure it together. Then you just spread your loops out and kind of fluff up your bow until it looks how you want it to look. And I couldn't wait to see what it looked like with the light on. So here I have the little lights on inside, and it looks so cute. But I'm just going to wrap the white ribbon around the outside of the tin one time and just glue it with my hot glue gun just at the top to secure it. Then I'm just going to add my bow at the very top, and then it will be finished.
For my new lamp post, I'm going to be using this 5.5 by 7.5 inch piece of wood from Dollar Tree. And I also picked up a smaller piece of wood that is 5.5 by 5.5 inches, and it's a little bit thinner. I'm also going to be using some pieces of Velcro. I picked these hook and loop fasteners up in the hardware aisle. And I'm going to be using a small piece of a scrap of a paint stir stick. I would recommend using about a 1-inch dowel for your post. You can pick these up at Walmart for several dollars. I happened to be at Home Depot and saw this stair baluster, and I decided to upgrade mine a little bit. It was a little bit more expensive, but I think it's going to be worth it. I'm going to use some black chalk paint to paint my post and my base. And I'm going to use just some wood glue from Dollar Tree and a couple of longer screws that we just had around the house. Of course, I'll need a screw gun to screw those in. And I'm going to be using this pre-made lantern that I picked up for $5 at Family Dollar. I can't DIY this for this price, so you should be able to get one similar to this at Dollar Tree Plus or at Family Dollar. I'm going to start by sanding my wood pieces and removing the labels from them. If you have stubborn labels that don't want to come off, just use a heat tool or even a blow dryer to loosen that adhesive. And if you have any sticky residue, just run your sandpaper over the top of that, and that should take care of it. I'm now going to find the center point of my wood pieces. I'm just going to do this by drawing a line diagonally across the blocks both directions, and then where they intersect is the center. I'm going to use a little old cutting board that I have just to protect my work surface, and then I'm going to drill a hole in that center point in both pieces of wood using a drill bit that's just a little bit smaller than the screws that I will be using. Now that I have those drilled, I'm going to go ahead and paint both pieces of my wood with my black chalk paint. The larger piece of wood I am going to paint on all sides, but the smaller piece of wood I'm going to paint all sides except for just a square in the center of one of the sides. And you'll see why I'm doing that here in just a moment. In the meantime, I would love to know if you saw my original lamppost video or if you tried to make it. I would love for you to leave me a comment below. Next, I'm going to cut my stair baluster or my post down because this is taller than I want it to be. And since the one end is longer, that square end is longer than the other, I'm just going to measure the shorter end and then I'm going to cut down the longer end to match. This made my post about 29 inches long, and my original video, I made the post 24 inches long, so I would say anywhere from 24 to 30 inches is probably good. The miter box and saw is super easy to cut this with, and as always, I have all my favorite crafting tools linked in the description box below. Once I have that cut, I'm going to just sand off any rough edges. On the end that I just cut, I am going to draw my diagonal lines to find the center of my post because I need to drill a little hole in this so that my screw will go in without splitting the post. There's already a hole on the one side of this baluster, but if you have a dowel that doesn't have holes in it, you're going to want to drill a hole in the center of each end of your dowel as well. And then I'm going to give my post a coat of black paint. I decided to use a little bit of this chiffon cream chalk paint. It's just an off-white color. And then a dry brush from Dollar Tree. Any dry paintbrush will work. And then I'm going to just dry brush over this because I wanted to bring out the details of the baluster. I felt like some of those got lost a little bit with it just being painted a solid black. And so I wanted the turned part of this to really show. And so by dry brushing a little bit of paint, it highlights those edges and it also kind of gives it a little bit of a snowy look. And since I dry brushed on the post, I went back and added a little bit of dry brushing to both pieces of wood that I painted black as well. Now I'm going to attach my post to my base, and I'm going to first put a little bit of wood glue on that bottom of the post, and then I'm going to put my screw through the base. This is the larger piece of wood, and then I'm going to just line that up with the hole in the post and screw that in tightly. This was a little hard to hold on to, so my hubby did help me with this, and you can do it by yourself, but having an extra set of hands is always helpful. Once the base is on, then we're going to add the smaller piece of wood to the other end. And now that the post is on the base, it's much easier to drill that little hole where we marked the end of the post. So I'm just drilling that right now. And then I'm going to go ahead and screw on my smaller piece onto the top, and I'm going to do this with that side that has the unpainted square in the center facing up. So now I need a way to attach my lantern to the post that we just made. So I am going to actually add a little spacer on top of the little door that the batteries go inside of, and this is going to help me attach this. So I just cut a piece of this 5-gallon paint stir stick, and this is a perfect width, and I just cut it basically the length of that little door. And then I'm going to use some Weld Bond, or you can use E6000, some sort of strong glue. I would not recommend using hot glue for this, but I'm going to use this Weld Bond, and then I am going to add a little bit of hot glue just to hold it on while that other glue is setting up. But this is going to give this a really strong bond so that it won't come off. And just a tip here, make sure that you don't get your glue inside the little battery compartment. You don't want to glue the little door shut so that you aren't able to change your batteries. And once you have this glued on, you do want to let the glue set completely before you go on to the next step of putting the Velcro on this, because you don't want the Velcro pulling your piece of wood off. You want this glue to be completely dry. I let my glue dry overnight, so I know it's completely set and this is not going to come off. The reason I had to put this spacer in is because that battery compartment, or the bottom of the lantern, is indented. It's not flat, and so I needed a way to attach it to my post. So I'm going to be using these Velcro pieces, and two of these from Dollar Tree fit perfectly on here. So I'm going to place two of the same type, of the same side of the Velcro on this, and then I am going to place the other side of the Velcro pieces so that they'll attach. I'm going to put those on the lamppost where we didn't paint, and this is why I didn't paint this. I wanted it to stick directly down onto the wood. And since I don't want to worry about which direction I need to position the lantern on here when I put it on the base, I'm going to use 4 squares of the Velcro so that there's a bigger surface on here, so no matter which way I set it on here, it's going to have plenty of surface to stick to. And it was perfect that the bottom of the lantern was exactly 5.5 inches square, which is exactly what this piece of wood that I picked up at Dollar Tree was for the base. So it just worked out perfectly. The Velcro is sticking really well to both the bottom of the lantern and the wood base, the top of my post. And so it's just working out really well. So the lantern that I picked up at Family Dollar already had that greenery on the top of it. So I just went into my stash and picked out some picks from Dollar Tree that I already had and found ones that I thought would go well with what was already on the lantern. And I'm removing a few of the elements from them that I don't want to use, but then I'm going to combine these two picks to create a floral piece on the bottom of my lamppost. I decided that I wanted to add a few extra little pine cones and berries to this, so I just dug through my stash and found some to add to it. But you can use any kinds of embellishments that you want or have on hand. It's just really up to you. Then I'm just going to attach all of my greenery and berries and pine cones and everything just using my hot glue gun. So you may remember in my original video, I said I thought putting some fake snow on the lantern would be a good idea. And so I decided to go ahead and just take some white craft paint and just add a little bit of snow in little patches all along the lantern. And I think this just really gives it that winter Christmas look and gives it a little more depth and dimension. And I also added a little bit to the pine cones and greenery that are on it as well, because if it were outside and it were snowing, snow would get on that as well. And since I added the snow to the lantern, I'm also going to add a little bit to the greenery and the pine cones and the berries that I added to the bottom of the lamppost just to tie it all together. Since the ribbon on the top of the lantern was just a plain red, I kind of wanted to keep with that. And I found this ribbon at Walmart. It was, I think, like $2.68 for this roll. And it's not quite the same color, but I'm okay with that. It doesn't have to be like matchy-matchy. I love using wired ribbon for this, and so I'm just going to loop my ribbon back and forth, and I'm going to make 4 loops on each side with one in the center to finish it off. And since I always forget to get something to tie my bow off with, I put a clamp on it, and then I am going to use some wire and just wrap that around the bow tightly and secure that. And then I will just fluff out those loops on my bow to give it a nice full look. Then I'm going to leave some fairly long tails on my bow because I want them to hang down on the lamppost. I did leave the wire that I tied the bow off with long enough that I could use it to tie the bow onto the lamppost, but you could also just attach the bow using some hot glue. And here it is, the Christmas lamppost 2.0. This version was so much easier to make, and I think it looks so much better. I loved how easy it was to make using this lantern from Family Dollar. And if you don't know, Family Dollar and Dollar Tree are owned by the same company, so a lot of the Dollar Tree Plus items you can find at Family Dollar. And that lantern just was a total game changer. It really made this an easy project. And since I had to make it removable to be able to turn the light off and on and change the batteries, then you can also remove it and use it like in a centerpiece like I have here. And so it just makes it really versatile. And I love how it looks on my table here, but I also love it as a lamp post. Also, if you are interested in how I made this little riser for the center of my table, I will leave that video linked here in the card above and in the description box below. For my last project, I will be using this little shadow box vacation fund bank from Dollar Tree. Also one of these glass candlesticks from Dollar Tree. And I'm going to also be using one of these wood finials. These I picked up at Hobby Lobby.
They were $2.49 for a package of 3, but I do believe I did get them on a 40% off sale. I'm also going to be using these jingle bells from Dollar Tree. I'm using this pack of the larger silver bells as well as a package of smaller red bells. And then I'm going to be using some black spray paint that will adhere to glass. I'll also be using just a little bit of Christmas greenery as well as this piece of scrapbook paper I picked up at Hobby Lobby. So first I am going to take my candlestick and my little wood finial, and I am going to take these out and spray paint them with a couple of light coats of the paint. And while that is drying, I'm going to remove the back from this little bank. I'm also going to remove the label, and if this is a little hard, you can use a heat gun, but you want to be really careful because the back of this is plastic, and if you get it too hot, it will start to warp and bubble. But I really love how easy it makes it to remove labels. And if you have some sticky residue left, just dab that sticker that you just took off on top of it, and it should pick up most of that residue. Next, I'm going to measure that back to see what size I need to cut my scrapbook paper down to. Then I'm going to cut that, and then I'll use just a regular Elmer's glue stick to glue the paper on. Next, I'm going to remove the lettering on the glass, and to do this I'm going to use 100% acetone fingernail polish remover and a cotton ball, and just apply a little bit of pressure and scrub that, and it'll come right off. Then I'll just take a rag and some glass cleaner and make sure that glass is nice and clean. Next, I'm going to add my bells into the inside of the frame. I'm going to use 6 of the silver bells and then about 10 or so of the smaller red bells. And then I will put the back on the frame. For this project, I cut out Jingle All the Way from the Cricut Design space, and I did it first in the black vinyl. But once I had put that on, I decided it was really hard to read, and so I actually decided to change it up and use the red vinyl, which I think shows up a little bit better. Next, I'm going to cut off that bottom section of that finial because it's made to fit down inside of a hole, and I don't have a hole that I'm putting it in, so I'm just going to cut that end off. And then I will just sand it down so it's nice and flat. Candlestick has had plenty of time to dry, so now I'm going to glue my little box on top of the candlestick, and I'm going to use some E6000 for this along with a little bit of hot glue. Hot glue by itself would just pop right off of the glass and the plastic frame of the box, so it's definitely important to use the E6000 for this. But the hot glue should hold it in place long enough for the E6000 to set up. Then I'm going to put a little dab of E6000 at the top, right next to the coin slot in the bank. And then I'm also going to just dab off any excess there because I don't want that to drip down inside the coin slot and get all over my bells. So that's what I'm doing here. But then I'm also going to add just a little bit of hot glue and then put that finial on top. Since the finial doesn't completely cover up the coin slot, I am going to add a little bit of embellishment around the bottom of that finial. I'm going to just use a piece of this pine greenery as well as just a little embellishment and one of those red bells. And I took one of the little silver hangers out of the package that came in the silver bells, and I tied a bow in the top of the red bell just to give it a little bit of the silver accent to tie it all together. And I decided to add a little bit of the black and white check ribbon around the top of the candlestick just to give it that finishing touch. And this actually made it coordinate with the first project I did in this video really well. I really love this project. I do wish the Jingle All the Way words stood out a little bit more. I'm wondering if maybe putting a dark background and then white lettering on it would have been a good thing to do, but let me know in the comments, what do you think? And let me know which project is your favorite. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps my channel. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button as well as the bell and set your notifications so YouTube will notify you when I upload new videos. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a blessed day.